It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce George Shefi. We're here in your beautiful home in Givat Ze'ev in Israel. And George, you were one of the Kindertransport.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about your history and...
Yes.
And
I mean, I can tell you more or less my life history in short. You can read it here, and then I don't have to hold the book all the time I'm talking, so I'll put it down. Let's go back to my parents. My grandparents were born in Hungary, on the border of Austria, but at that time it was one unit, the Austro-Hungarian Habsburg Empire. And my mother was the fourth of five siblings. And she was already born in Vienna because at a certain stage the family moved from Hungary, from a small village next to the town of Zombotai. First of all, I can't pronounce the name of the village in Hungarian because then I wouldn't be able to talk anymore. And then they moved to Vienna, where my mom was born. And when my mom was eight months old, they moved to Berlin. So for all intents and purposes, she's German. She never spoke a word of Hungarian in her life. And my aunt, the youngest aunt already was born in Germany. My granddad in the First World War was a regimental sergeant major in the Kaiser Army. And his two sons were also soldiers. One served in Albania and Yugoslavia, and what the other one did, I have no idea, but there are photographs in the book. And
This is your grandfather?
Yeah. And grandmother.
And your grandmother.
There's a picture of the whole family someplace. And the senior uncle, he in 1919 decided that Europe isn't a place to live and stowed away on a ship to America. And then he came illegally and worked there, and he was there about 5 years, and then he asked to change his name, and he changed his name to the original, what it should have been in the first place. And he was there, and actually I was afterwards with him because he probably paid to go for me to get from Germany to England, and a lot of the correspondence that was still possible also. I'll talk about that later.
So this is a picture of another picture of your grandparents. And here's a family picture.
Okay. And so I was born in 1931. And what happened was my dad was born in St. Petersburg. And when he was about 18 or something, his parents sent him to Berlin, to family, to study in the Berlin University, become an economist. And they sent him because they didn't want him to go into the Red Army, which wasn't so pleasant for Jews at that time. And of course he needed a room and looked for a room as a student, and my grandma had passed away already. So apparently there was another room spare, and he came and lived with us. I wasn't still there. And to make a long story short, my mom was about 21 or 2, good-looking woman, good figure, and the result is sitting here before you.
So you have the original. This is from your birth certificate. And your birth registration, and your parents' marriage certificate. How did you get these documents?
To be honest with you, I don't know how. I know I scrounged them from wherever I could. You know, when I went someplace, they stuck to me. And of course, they divorced, which was agreed upon, and I grew up as a single parent kid. And life went on as usual. And after 1933, I didn't know the difference. I had a very sheltered childhood and was pampered and spoiled from left to right. I remember a few things from the early age. I must have been about 4 when I went to a summer house for my youngest aunt, who was married to a dentist. And they were quite well off and had a summer house in Wannsee. And the same, I was there for a while for the holidays or something, and I sat in this big bed with feather cushions and everything, and I got too much chocolate, and I was sitting in bed, and the chocolate, as it went in, it's the same way it came out again. And I remember this, I'll never forget. I was sitting with my hands cupped like this, and the chocolate full of molten chocolate, and I was yelling and screaming and crying like all hell. But I don't know who saved me from that position. And another thing I remember from another visit, in that same village, where my aunt had a summer house, Max Schmeling had a summer house. Now, Max Schmeling was a German boxer who was world champion for a couple of years. And by the way, he was never a Nazi. He was absolutely, they wanted him to be a Nazi and salute, and he refused to do it. And so he survived and lived until 1986, I think. And his house burned down one night. And then, you know, for me, that his house burned down, that didn't bother me. But, you know, the fire engines and the hoses and the whole action was important for me.
George, here's a picture of your mother with your Aunt Judith.
Could be.
And
no, than me, I was there too. Take a good look.
Your mother was pregnant with you.
Yeah, you can see it.
And then here's a picture of you in Wannsee.
Wannsee. And anyway, I went to school, and I was already starting in 1938. In November, I was already in the second class.
Was it a public school?
No, it was a Jewish school. I have a photograph. It was a synagogue, and it had 2 wings, for boys and for girls, which, of course, on Kristalnacht was destroyed. The shell of the building stood until 1956, and nobody was willing to pay to have it reconstructed. So they tore the building down. And that Jewish school was next to a regular school, a common wall, or common garden wall, which is called Locknitz, and that's important. I'll tell you in a minute why. And I remember that on the 10th of November 1938, my mom said to me, "You can't go to school today." And I must admit, I didn't cry. I wasn't unhappy. I was quite happy to stay at home. And then I wasn't allowed to go out for 3 days out of the house. And I must say I lived in Schöneberg at that time, in the main street, not far from where Potsdamer Straße starts, and there was a big park there where I used to play and so forth. Anyway, after 3 days I was allowed to go out, only accompanied with somebody, not by myself. And then I saw what happened with the stores, the Jewish stores there. And Schöneberg at that time had 60,000 inhabitants, that area. Of that, 16,000 were Jewish. It was a large Jewish community. In Berlin altogether, there was 160,000 Jewish people. From the 650,000 Jews living in Germany, 160 lived in Berlin. And in our house, this I'll never forget, there was a stationery store, which belonged to a mixed couple. She was Christian and he was Jewish. and they didn't destroy the store. Hadas came. They didn't destroy the store, but they wrote on the pavement, "This store belongs to a Jewish pig who's married to a German Christian sow or swine." And there were about 50 people there who were trying to, jeering, and he was trying to clean this thing off. I mean, I don't know what they said, I don't remember, but I remember they were there screaming and yelling and so forth. Very unpleasant, to say the least.
She has a picture of you in 1930, in the 1930s, in the district court in...
So there's a lot of pictures. It's my book, by the way, if you don't...
And George, do you remember growing up, going to school?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any non-Jewish friends, or were they...
Apparently, yes, but I don't remember, and I tried to find them, and I advertised in the Aktuell, which is a magazine that comes out in Berlin, which is actually for Holocaust survivors and what's going on in Germany today. And it was published, but I never got a reply. And also, by the way, I got a very nasty letter from Siemens. My mom, I know that after I left, of course, they at a certain stage they were taken to forced labor, and my grandfather also was worked to death and died in 1940, and my mother and my aunt, one worked in Siemens and the other one worked in Fink. And I think my mother worked in Siemens, and I wrote to Siemens and asked that, first of all, I want you to know I'm not looking for money, so there shouldn't be a mistake. I'm looking for information. It was about 20 or 30 years ago. And if you can find anybody who had lived and worked in Siemens during the war and knew my mom. I wanted to know what kind of a woman she was. I know her as a mother. I don't know whether she liked to dance. I don't know whether she sang music. I don't know what her hobbies were. I don't know anything about her.
You have a very beautiful picture of your mother.
So...
And she was Miriam.
Even Miriam, yeah. Mitzi, oder Maria. And I have a birth certificate. Which I got, I don't know from who I took it. and I know that on the 29th of January 1943, she was put on a train to Auschwitz, apparently from work, straight from work, and she arrived on the 30th and was taken straight to the gas chamber, as far as I know. And how do I know this? I have documents. I did a lot of research. I've got documents from the. I have a Matzeget, a show. I can show it to you afterwards. I have documents from Auschwitz and from. What's the name of the place? Where the river Mazel and Rhine meet. Bakum, maybe. There's a big archive there anyway. And I have from them also documents. And I will show them to you. And that one document is a detail of the transport that she was on. It was written, number and date and everything. And explanation, 1,000 Jews from Berlin were on this transport, of which 140 men from number to number went to forced labor, and 140 women from number to number went to forced labor, and all the rest went from the train straight to the camp. Now, in Auschwitz, I got the card that was written when they received them, or afterwards when they were making order there. And there was a place for a number, but there was no number. So I figure out that they never got a number. And
Did Siemens, what did they reply?
I won't show you the letter. Look, they said we paid all the reparations to the people that we had to pay to, and we've done our duty to they didn't even realize what I'm looking for. Never mind. But on the other hand, I have a lot of German friends, because with my talking, and so I'll tell you about that later. Anyway, with the Kindertransport, you can read there, and I don't want to go into the whole story of it, but I had quite a couple of experiences.
George, I'm going to just show, these are pictures of you with your mother and your friends in your home in Berlin, and you looked very happy. You looked very...
Yeah, it was also shortly. Look, I was a very spoiled child, and that's shortly before I left Berlin.
And your father, do you remember him when your parents got divorced?
I was 1 year old.
And did he ever come and visit you, or...?
Absolutely. My parents, my mother and the family on my mother's side smeared his name so much, I even never looked for him, was never interested in him. Only afterwards, we'll get to that. And then I remember very clearly in 1939, on the 25th of, by the way, I came now when we went to Germany, I found out that Walter and I were on the same train.
This is Walter Bingham.
Yeah. Oh, now we knew.
And now. Can I just ask?
Yeah, you can ask what you want.
Growing up,
no problem. You have to be ready that there's something maybe they don't want to answer.
Growing up in Berlin.
Yes.
Do you remember when the Nazi Party came? Okay, 33. You were very young. I'm sure you. But do you remember the years from 33 onwards when?
Look, I remember when I was already about 6 years old, we were supposed to sit in the park on banks which were yellow and written on it, "Nur für Juden," only for Jews.
Do you remember seeing that sign?
Oh yeah, 100%. And also that my grandfather took me on the bus and sat down when he wasn't allowed to. My grandfather never admitted to the Nazi laws. He said, I served this country as a soldier and I have rights. No, it didn't help him much in 1940, but anyway, when I was there, he never, and I remember my mom always used to say that he's going to get in trouble because he never obeys the Nazi laws.
Is this?
That's my grandfather.
This was David?
Benedict.
And you had a close connection with your grandfather?
Oh, yeah.
And do you remember ever seeing the Hitler Youth or the Nazis marching?
I saw it, yeah, but it didn't make such an impression on me. But I know that on the 25th of July, 1939, in the evening, my mom said, on the 24th, sorry, and the mom said to me, okay, tomorrow you're going to go by train and you're going to go to another country and you're going to go on a ship. And they made it a lovely exhibition, and that I should choose the toys that I will take with me. I made a pile about this high of toys, and I had a fire engine about so big, which I could sit on, and it had a steering wheel, and you could drive and everything. And then it came out that they didn't take a single toy because we only allowed one suitcase, and they didn't take anything, which I'm a little regret. But anyway, I got onto the train, and I remember going onto the train and saying goodbye to my mom. And she took a taxi, she said, to another station on the other side of Berlin, Grunewald, on the western side, where she will say again bye-bye. And we got to the station, and I saw her running on the platform, but she never saw me. And that's the last time I saw her.
The last time. George, before, can I just ask you, you have a beautiful picture here in the seashore in one scene.
Yeah. I have no idea who the guy is, if that's what you want to ask.
But growing up in Berlin, was your family traditional? Was it a...
Look, we drove on Saturday. I think they ate kosher. I'm not so sure, but I know we Pesach. We kept Pesach and we Hanukkah and the holidays we celebrated. I remember that my mom and I remember matzot and stuff like that.
And most of your friends, were they from your school?
That I don't remember anymore.
Do you remember the name of the school?
What, where I went to? No, but I have it written there someplace. And then the school I went afterwards is Locknitz School. That school, I have to tell, that's a very special school. That school had the same, as I said to you, the same common wall, but they were not the same address, because the main entrance to my school from the street here and went in here, and the entrance to this school was on this street with the entrance here. And this school in 1986 or 7, they have a wonderful headmistress there, but she didn't start this thing. And they decided that they will commemorate all the Jews who were murdered in Schöneberg, in that area, and to build a wall. And they the kids in the 6th grade, that was the last grade, from there they went on to another school. Every kid had to choose a Jewish family, a person who was murdered, and write how does he associate with them and so forth, and they built the wall. And now today this wall, and I have pictures here, is about 1.5 meters high and 30 meters long. And every year they collect, and at the end of the year they make a big ceremony when the bricks that were done, and I'll show it to you, were put in permanently. And they have a big corner there where I've got a very, very big exhibition. And that school, that was also, how did I find out all this? When I put up the Stolpersteiner, this guy who organized it, he said there's a school here who was connected to the Holocaust. They're working on the Holocaust. They would like to come to the ceremony at the Stolpersteiner. So, for my part, okay. And they came. And about two days later, before the ceremony, after I gave him permission, he telephoned me. I was still here. I did, but it was more before I went there. Said, "Do you know what school you're going to?" I said, "I don't know, some school that I went to after the school that was burned down." Said, "You're going to the same school. That's the same school that you went to after your school was burned down." And they all came to the ceremony, and it was quite. And I've been connected with this school then ever since. I've been there back a couple of times, and now that when they made this thing from the Kindertransport, now when we were there, they made a big ceremony. I tell you, I also...
You were crying. It was very emotional.
There was one kid there whose parents came from the States. He was born in Germany and spoke both languages perfectly, and he read from the book some chapter, I don't remember which. And then, not only that, they gave me a present, that little box. And if you open it, I don't know if I can open it this way, I think I can, and put it back again. No, come on.
if you could open.
That's a tile from the Jewish school.
This is the original tile.
One part of the original tile. See, they have this park, they're sort of grounds, and they're always finding things. And what's one of the things I found? From the corridor, I don't know, from the bathroom, I don't know where it's from.
Oh, this is so precious.
It hit me a little bit. Yeah, top. Anyway, I got to England, of course.
I just want to ask you before your mother told you about that you're going to be leaving.
Yes.
Did you say goodbye to your grandfather or
I don't remember. Most likely, but I don't remember. I left early in the morning. Look, the Germans at that time were still sensitive that the German population shouldn't see this exodus. Altogether, there were things that the Germans stopped doing because they didn't want the German population, the general population, to know. Because I don't know if you know, but they had this Euthysania when people with crooked legs and that didn't only Jews, that they did to everybody, also Germans. And the Archbishop of Worms gave a talk on a Sunday to 3,000 constituents from his church and talked about that. And that Germany became afraid that he's going to have a revolution, not because of the Jews, but because of the anti-religious aspect of the thing. And he stopped doing it. So, which means you could, if the Germans wanted to, they could have stopped it at a certain stage, but it was too late already. I don't know if I wanted to show you also the laws, but first I'll finish my story quickly. And I got to England.
But before you got to England, do you remember when you said goodbye to your mother? Did you know that you were not going to see her? And you didn't know how long you're going to be going away for?
Well, for me it was an adventure. Right?
And did you know where you were going? Did you tell me?
No. Probably yes, but I don't remember if I knew. So we got to the...
Did you go with any friends? Or were you...
alone.
And could you say goodbye to your friends before? Or?
I don't remember. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. No idea.
And were you nervous to go because you're going?
No, as a matter of fact, to go and travel, I was quite happy apparently. I didn't know that it would push me in a different direction of my life.
But can I just ask, just before
yeah, you can ask. That doesn't mean I might answer.
When Kristalnacht happened,
yes.
Did you feel the atmosphere of Kristalnacht? Do you remember the Kristalnacht?
I remember it very, very clearly. But afterwards, the same night that it happened, I didn't feel anything. Because our apartment wasn't demolished. But the next day when I had to go, 3 days later when I went to another school, then I realized most likely. And then I think I became a little bit afraid of going out and into the street, and I'm not so sure.
Did you have any anti-Jewish feeling? Anti-Semitic feeling, or?
No, not that I remember.
Okay. So this is a picture of your mother?
Yes. This is a kid who wrote about my mother. Now this kid is something special. His father is Israeli and his mother is a Christian German. But he grew up in Germany and he doesn't know much. We asked him if he knows Hebrew. Also mehr Laila Tov Motik. 2 or 3 words. Now leave it. So
This is the memorial that they did for the
Yeah.
Jewish citizens.
you can see here. This one has got the background of the wall.
And this is the wall.
I'll put it over here, maybe here.
They have a picture you were mentioning about the shul
Yeah.
and the school.
Yeah, and I have a bigger picture of that someplace. And here's this guy. This you photographed?
Yeah,
No. You photographed it? Or this one?
both. It's very special.
And this was the girl who did the same thing for my aunt, my mother's sister. She's the Turkish girl living in my house.
Could you go into the house?
The house the stairs are still standing. The apartments on that side are still standing. And where my apartment was probably so damaged that they tore it down instead of rebuilding it. And I don't know if you want to see here. You can see that here. That's my mom, and that's my aunt. I don't know if you should waste the film on this. And here you can see how it goes. Here you can see all the stones that they collected in a year, and in the background is the wall.
It's very special.
I nearly didn't get to my wedding. I was called up all of a sudden on duty, and I was 3 days before the wedding. I was 200 kilometers from Haifa. And I told my captain, I said, I'm getting married in 3 days. He says, I'll give you a pass. I said, yeah, but how do I get there? He said, that's your problem. This picture also has a story. I'm the guy with the short pair, leather jacket, and holding the boat.
What is the story?
When I was already in 12 years old, I was in Coulsdon already living, and I'll make order afterwards. And our school adopted a minesweeper from the Free Dutch Navy. And the Free Dutch Navy made a model of their boat and gave it to the school as a present. And at school they knew that I was born in Germany, and they said German and Dutch should be similar, so I should receive the boat. And that I did, that's the picture. But now comes another point. In 1989, I went with my daughter, to the reunion, and I went to the school there, and I went to the headmaster, and I said, I attended this school 50 years ago or something, whatever. I said, oh yeah. I said, well, yeah, okay, you can have a look around and so forth. I said, and there should be a boat here. And he jumped up to the ceiling. He said, how do you know? I said, I know. He said, but the fact is there is no boat. They knew there was a story about the boat during the war, which they adopted. But they don't have the boat, and they don't know exactly what happened. I said, that's simple, I can tell you exactly what happened. He said, Rega. And then I told him the story. He said, oh, just a moment. And then he took two kids, a boy and a girl of 10. He said, these two kids are going to show you the school today. And the kids wrote, had to write a story about what they thought before I came. What they thought was the story of the boat. So I have all those stories upstairs in what those kids wrote at the age of 12 or something. And I have the original picture.
George, can I ask you, with regard to the Kindertransport?
What?
With regard to the Kindertransport, yes. What happened on that day? Do you remember?
What day?
When did your mother tell you that you're going to be leaving?
The day before I left.
Just the day before. And did you have any idea what this entails?
Probably I trusted my mother so much that what she said was okay with me.
So she took you, what happened? She took you to the station?
Yeah.
And what could you take? Do you remember what you could take in your case? You couldn't take all the toys?
None of them I took, only clothes. And I was about so high, but something like that. I can't carry a suitcase.
Did your mother ever tell you how you got onto the list to go, or?
No.
And you never had family in England, or?
Oh, that's the continuation of the story. I got to London.
Okay, so before you get to London, you got to the station, and then who did you meet at? Do you remember who you met at the station, or?
No, I remember that we got off the train. I don't, it's a little bit, because I remember that, and I have it on the movie of the Kindertransport. That they were on a big field, and people came and chose kids, Jews, Christians, and it came out, and some other people also. I had relatives in London from the family. They were distant relatives. That was the sister of the wife of the uncle or something like that.
But George, before, from Berlin, where did the train go?
It went to the Hook of Holland.
And then you got a boat?
And then I went onto a boat.
Do you remember going on the boat?
Yes. But how I got there, I don't remember. I remember crossing the Dutch border very well.
What happened?
There was still a check from the Nazis. So when the Nazis got onto the train, everybody was quiet like all hell. And when we crossed the border and were already in Holland, the older kids of 18 or 17 or so forth, they started to sing, and so I didn't even know what the whole bloody business was about. And 3 kilometers into Holland, and we stopped at the station, and this I remember, Dutch women came on the train and gave us fruit and sandwiches and milk and so forth. That I remember very clearly. And it's all documented in the movie I have from the Kindertransport, if you want to see it. And
then, do you know the name of the boat that you went?
No.
And how long was that trip?
Overnight.
Overnight.
Next morning.
Had you ever been on a boat before?
No, not on the ocean.
And a train? Had you been on a train before?
Come to think of it, not.
So it was an adventure.
No, you're sure. And then I got to London and started school.
But when you got to London, did you know any English?
Not a word.
Not a word.
And when I got to London, I was with this family who spoke German also. So
did they pick you?
No, this family. They were family. I was supposed to get to them. But they were also immigrants to England. And I remember going to school.
But hold on, George, I want to ask you, when you arrived in London, what happened when you got to London that day? Do you remember what happened?
Not clearly, but I know that they was taken to their house in Stoke Newington.
And who took you?
No, this family. I don't know how, by taxi or bus, I have no idea, don't remember. And then I started school. I remember they had a nice house and a big garden in the back with pear trees and apple trees and plum trees and so forth.
And did they just choose you randomly, or?
No, they were family of ours.
They were family, and they knew that you were there.
They knew that I was coming, but I only stayed with them for 5 weeks because the war broke out.
Okay, but they spoke German as well.
They spoke better German than English.
So that must have made, and did you know that they were your family?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that must have made it much easier.
Yeah, but then after 5 weeks I was taken, when all the kids of London were evacuated. That means I was a refugee in July and an evacuee in September. And I got to this village Barnack. Nobody spoke German there, of course. And I was lucky. On the train with the school were two young teachers who had been in Germany for a year as an exchange. English who taught in Germany, and two Germans that were taught in England and went back to Germany. And they spoke German. So the people, whoever it was, decided that I go with these two, where the two teachers go, and they were billeted with the rector of the church. That was before Margaret Thatcher. The church was stinking rich. And this house was built, the oldest part was built as over 1,000 some years ago. And that house was very high, aristocratic. It had about 11 bedrooms, and then a big dining room and a big living room. And they had a kitchen and a sub-kitchen and the pantry and the storeroom. And they had, and the whole of 5 people worked there. There were 2 permanent gardeners, 2 permanent cooks, a woman who took care of the mother of the rector because she was blind, and then there was Alice, who was in charge of the whole running of the business. And I went with them. And from the family of the rector, he had 5 kids. The oldest was working in London. As far as I know, he was working something secretly because nobody ever spoke, or I don't remember. Hugh, the second son, was a bomber pilot, a Pathfinder, and he was killed over Hamburg. And the next son, that's the third son, was also in the Air Force, and he got injured over someplace, I don't know where, but the plane got back. And then there was Joan, the oldest daughter. She was in college or something at 19. And then there was Anne. That was my problem. She was a year older than I am, and but only physically she was a woman. Mentally she was a boy, and she did horrible things. And she had a fantastic mind. And I'll give you an example. She took me under her wing. And now she was the boss, because then she was always the youngest. Now she's the oldest and I'm the youngest. Now this thing, I have pictures of it here someplace. This house had a big, by the way, the area with all the land that was connected with the rectory, today there are about 35 houses or 2 or 10 streets or something. Because Margaret Thatcher, eliminated the petchy-matchy sort of. And one day she said to me, do you know how to ride? I was there maybe 3 months. Do you know how to ride a bicycle? I said, no, we're going to learn. Now there was a big driveway. And you come in through the wall, we had a big wall and a gate, and then you come in, there's a big roundabout of about 130 meters in diameter, and the car would go in and drive around, and then let people off at the door, and then go out and go to the garage, which could accommodate about 6 cars. Therefore, I mean, they didn't have that many cars. But there was a big place there for the stables, most likely, before it was a garage. And she said, okay, you're going to learn. And she gave me her bicycle, which was like this for girls, and she took the boys' bicycle, status. And we started to learn, and about 50 minutes later, it started to rain. And that bloody girl, she ran to the front door and said, you can't come in until you know how to ride a bicycle, closed the door and locked it from the inside. And I was outside with the bicycle. I couldn't ride, and raining like all hell. I remember I cried like all hell. But in half an hour I knew how to ride a bicycle. And then I knocked on this I'll never forget. I knocked on the door and she poked her head out and said, I told her, I can ride. She says, I want to see. Seeing is believing. I rode her, and then she let me in. And to show you how, a lot of other things she did. She nearly choked me to death once. By accident, because we were running away. She didn't want me to go to bed because she could stay a half an hour later because she was older. And Alice wanted me to go to bed, and so she grabbed me, and we were running around this big house, hiding behind doors. And you know, I was always laughing, and she had a tea cozy. I couldn't breathe. Anyway, we visited on the second time I was in the reunion. I went with the whole family, and we were there, and we went to visit her because I got onto her tracks. That's another story, how I got onto her track. And the first words she said, "I don't know why you want to see me. I was so horrible to you."
Wow.
So I said that I agree with 100%, but I still want to see you. But I couldn't. She says, "Look, this afternoon there's in Westminster Abbey the marriage of Prince Edward, and I want to see that, so you'll have to wait another hour and a half before we can speak." So I had to wait 60 years and another hour and a half. Character. Tipusin.
And George, can I just ask the family that came to fetch you? What do you remember their names? Your family?
The ones in London.
In London.
Oh yeah, Neustadt.
And were they very kind to you?
Oh yeah, they were okay.
Did they have children as well?
Yeah, one son. 2 years older than me, but he died quite a long time ago.
And did they explain to you what was happening?
No. But I was there. I came back to London because it was quiet, and then I was in the Blitz for 2 months, and then I wrote to the rector if I can come back, and he let me back, of course.
And during this time, were you in touch with your mother? Could you correspond?
No. But first of all, I got a letter. I don't remember when, maybe 41. Or maybe even 42, I don't know. A letter from the Red Cross, 25 words, and I had to answer on the back, so I don't have the original. And everything is fine because, you know, the Nazis were looking to see what she wrote. But I had you have to remember, when did America go into the war?
It was after Pearl Harbor.
Yes. On the 10th of December, 1941. Pearl Harbor the 6th. And then the Germans declared war on America because they were allies of the Japanese. And that's 2.5 years after the war started in Europe. Those 2.5 years, my mother used to write to her brother in America, who used to write to England and get information, and was written back to America, which went back. These letters I have. The originals. And also I have here one of the records from the social worker in London who was responsible for my well-being.
That's amazing. And you've kept it.
A lot of it you can't read, but here at least you can read something.
And you keep these records. It's amazing.
I don't know if they're all like that. You can read, I need shoes, I need tefillin, I need...
And was the rector very kind to you as well?
The wife he was a sort of aloof. Look, that was such an aristocratic family. The rector had his own garden where he used to walk and meditate. Nobody ever went into his office, of course. And just a second. And
this is the. Was it at Barnack?
Barnack, yeah.
This is a picture.
The village still exists.
It looks like a magnificent building.
What, the rectory?
And it's Eric Nesbitt.
Yes, he was a rector.
It looks beautiful. It's near Stanford.
No, I understand. With all the trouble with Anne, that was the most happiest part of my childhood, besides Germany.
And this is the letter that your mother wrote to her brother.
One of them. I have them here. You can see the original.
You have the originals?
No, the originals I gave to but they were photographed so that they look like the originals.
So this is a copy of the... And do you remember what was written on the Red Cross from your mother?
No.
And what did you hear about your mother during this time? Did you have any news or?
No, never heard from. Never. Look, I was with all the problems that should have had. I was still taken care of quite well, and maybe it's my disposition, my outlook, that I'm an optimist. I think, and I think I have a good sense of humor, which helps.
Very good, exceptionally good.
And I take things as they come. So it's got its pluses and it's got its minuses.
And the family, your family in London?
Yes.
Did you keep a close connection with the family?
After I left now. I mean, I did have connections with them more or less when I got to London, when the people you know that in 1943, I had to leave the rectory because the Canadian Army took over that whole complex of the rectory as the headquarters for all the Canadian Army in Europe. It was excellent. It was a big house with rooms like all hell, a big wall around it which you can defend, and it was perfect. So, but then the rector got a smaller house, and there was no room for me. So this Jewish family, he was a teacher of physics. He was super religious. So he heard of my story and he took me in. So here I was going to church for 3 years, and then on Wednesday I moved, and on Saturday I couldn't turn on the light, and I couldn't draw, and I couldn't ride my bicycle.
And where did they stay?
They were living in Barnack too, because he was a teacher of physics there.
And they were religious?
Super religious. And she was quite I didn't get along well with her. And she's the only person who ever raised a hand against me.
Really?
I had it, look, let's be honest, I had it coming to me, I agree, but the rectory would never have used force.
This is the primary school. It looks so nice where you were.
Now it's a historic site.
And Eric Alexander, he was your adopted brother.
Yeah, sort of. Oh, I didn't like him at all. He never had to get up in the morning and do anything. I had to get up and make breakfast for everybody. And
he didn't need to.
No, and I had to go go shopping even when there was an air raid alarm to buy food. And I didn't like that place too much. And when I remember that, I ran away from there twice. But I can tell you from experience, you run away, that's easy. But at 12 o'clock, when everything is dark and you're hungry and you have no place to go, you put your tail between your hind legs and you return.
So he was younger than you?
Yeah, a year and a half, or a year and a quarter.
And was the family, were they very Orthodox?
Very much so. And he was the husband was really marvelous. And it apparently there is something. He came from a poor family from Manchester, managed to work his way through college and get a degree in physics, and she came from a bloody rich family. And living there, you could feel it absolutely. I didn't get along with that woman, not at all.
This is with his cousin, but did they make you feel part of the family?
Look, because of him, I have a bar mitzvah. Because without him, I wouldn't have had a bar mitzvah. And he always was, smoothing things out.
And at the bar mitzvah, what do you remember about the bar mitzvah?
That I didn't understand the word I was reading. And you know, I sing, if the tune is here, I'm always singing here. And he had a lot of patience. And
the father, he helped you, or?
He helped me. He really took care of me.
And the family from London, did they come for the bar mitzvah?
No, it was in London.
It was in London.
We lived in Coulsdon, which is not so far away. Now it's already part of Greater London.
And do you remember the name of the shul that you had the bar mitzvah in?
No.
And the pasha, do you remember which?
What?
Do you remember which pasha it was? Or?
No idea.
But did they make a ceremony? Was it a big deal?
Look, I remember going with the pointer reading and then there were the food or something, I don't know, and then we went back to...
And this is a letter that you have that you wrote to your Aunt Judith and her husband in Australia.
And it is not very correct.
And did you keep a good connection with your Aunt Judith?
I should actually, when I was in America, I should have gone to Australia. I have the documents. I was accepted at the university in Sydney to study agriculture, and I would get for free. As long as I would, after finishing, get my degree, I would be 3 years working in a station somewhere in the middle of Australia. Now, I don't know why, but all of a sudden this whole thing stopped. I had my visa, everything. And all of a sudden the whole thing fell through. And I have no documents. But because my dad was in Australia and my aunt must have seen him someplace in Sydney, they stopped me from going to Australia.
Really?
There's no other bloody good reason why when I was accepted and I had all the documents, I didn't go.
So here you have these wonderful pictures. How old were you at this time?
Maybe 10 or 12, maybe.
And George, during this time, look, you're smiling and you seemed... It must have been very difficult not having your mother with you, or...
I think it was, but on the other hand, look, I took life as it is.
This is a report of the social workers?
And I still do.
And did you have any idea what had happened to your mother at this time?
No.
And your grandfather, you didn't...
I lived from day to day.
And how old are you in this picture?
Oh, that was shortly before I left, I think, for the States.
How old were you when you went to the States?
Oh, I was 13 and a quarter.
13 and a quarter?
Yeah.
Was it...
I went by myself. That's also a story. Yeah, it lives. My uncle already planned that I should come to America. But don't forget there's a war on, so all transportation was military. And they allocated only a few spots of people to go to America or to travel on ships. And I had to wait 2 years before I got a possibility to go. And in 1945, in the beginning, or the end of 1944, was the time of the V2s. And we ran away from Coulsdon and went to Bournemouth with the rich parents of the mother. The woman, his wife, was living. And there I got a telegram to report on this and this day at the American Embassy. So Mr. Alexander, who I tell you, he was marvelous, took me and we went to the embassy, and they told us that from this day on, I have to be prepared when I get a telegram in 24 hours to leave England, because it was super secret. You don't announce to the Nazi U-boats when the ship is traveling. And so we told them that I'm not living in London. We were evacuated to Bournemouth, and my own Coulsdon is all my things. I said, look, you're going to then, okay, we'll send you a telegram, but from that second telegram, you have to be prepared. And you'll get then a telegram, which means that's it, you have to go. So we went back, we got a couple of days later a telegram. So we knew that something was going to happen. And then 2 days later, we got another telegram. And then that same morning at 6 o'clock, we drove to London and to Houston. I packed all my stuff, went back to London, said goodbye to whoever had us, to the Neustadt, to whoever I had to say goodbye to. And 11 o'clock, I was already at the King's Cross station. And there I met another 200 or 199 passengers. And then somebody told me, this woman here, she's traveling and she's going to be your apratopos, to take care of you. Now, on the 10-day trip, she saw me once and I saw her once, and I think both were happy with that combination. And I went, and this was the destroyer. The one that was a destroyer like that was accompanied us to one day out of England and one day into. Listen,
because it was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Yeah, not only that, listen, I have 2 minutes to take the story. So we went, and there were 6,000 Canadian soldiers on that ship, 600 wounded Americans, and 200 civilian passengers. And the Canadians right away saw this kid, 13 years old, and everybody got a shoebox. We were under military orders, also the civilians. A shoebox, cigarettes, candy, and $40. Everybody got that. I got that too. No, I didn't smoke, so I sold my cigarettes and made some more money. And then one of the first days, a Canadian soldier said, son, you want to go to the movies? I said, look, I can't. That's only for soldiers. He said, come on. Opened up his coat, shoved me in, closed the coat, and went in. And nobody saw from the coat were 4 legs. So I was well taken care of by the Canadian Army, believe me. And then 2 days before we got to Halifax, and it was so boring. I was already sick and tired of going around and going on, and we had waves there, and then 15-meter waves. The boat was, and that was a 46,000-ton ship, was once the biggest ship in the world, the Aquitania, SS Aquitania. And 2 days before we got to Halifax, I was sitting playing cards with 3 Canadian officers. And all of a sudden, boom, bah, explosions and firing and whoo, and sirens and everything. And the law was anybody who had nothing to do with running the ship at action stations goes to the cabin where they sleep. Why? Because your cabin is here, your lifeboat is here. No running in 100 different directions. And so everybody had to return, except one person. I said, I'm not going to miss out on orders, and I didn't go. So then I heard on the intercom, Mr. Shefi of that is please requested to return to his cabin immediately. Now you think I went, no. But then another 2 minutes later came 2 military policemen. That was it. They were too big for me. And then the next day, I got up, looked out when it was light, and I saw there were 7 destroyers there and airplanes and the whole it was a big attack at night. I enjoyed myself. Got to Halifax, we got off the train. The last, first the wounded, then the soldiers, and we were always, ballast. Got to Montreal. In Montreal, we had to wait for 8 hours to the train to New York. So they said, look, it's a free country. Go and enjoy yourself. Take a look at Montreal. So I went to Montreal by myself. And sure enough, there were stores, ananas, bananas, oranges. That didn't exist in England. In England, you ate what grows there. There, the apples you had, and pears you had, and plums you had, and rhubarb you had, and that's it. Well, and I had money. I got back to the train at 8 o'clock in the evening, got on the train, went to the toilet and sat there until the next morning and got out when we got to New York. I didn't even see the seat I was supposed to sit in. Do you know how much I ate? Ice cream and I don't know what. And then I got to, and I didn't know my uncle. So how do I know who he is? So we got off the train, and there was a fence with the arrivals and the people who were to pick up. And then we waited until one guy here and one guy here, and that's it. And then another, and then with this I had, and then my uncle said to me, now I take the train to Newark. And now in England, I wanted to take my bicycle. And they said, no, in America, everybody has cars. They all go, well, you don't need a bicycle. I went without a bicycle. Here my uncle says to me, we're going by their train to Newark. Well, I was promised a bicycle. And he got to Newark. He said, here I parked my car because I didn't want to drive in. And then I felt better. And then we went, before I got to the house where I was going to live, he took me and changed me like you saw with short pants, put me long pants and changed me from an Englishman to an American.
This is the landing card, George Spiegelglass.
Yeah.
And how come you had the surname Spiegelglass?
That was my father's name.
Your father's name.
And by the way, I have his, he was in the mandatory police in Israel. So I have his discharge, and I have his discharge from the, you know, I stole quite a lot of stuff in my life.
But it's wonderful that you have it. It's
Yeah.
And your uncle, when you saw him, this is your father's certificate. This is that you...
Where? From the Palestine police?
Yeah.
I have the original.
Discharged from the Palestine police.
And you know, when I met my dad the first time, I couldn't talk to him. On the way back from the airport, I talked to him and I talked to his wife. And we had a good relationship. We only met 6 times altogether. I was in Australia 3 times and he came here 3 times. And whenever we were together and discussed and so forth, we never discussed anything before 1964.
Not about
Why?
how they got divorced or...
Nothing. I didn't bring it up. We didn't talk about it. I didn't bring it up and he didn't bring it up. And I think it was okay that way.
And how did you find your father? How did you find him in Australia?
Oof, just by chance. What happened was that we decided to change the name from Spiegelglass to Shefi. And before we did that, from the time we decided and made the application until we got the chef in the name, we still were Spiegelglass. In that short period of time, Yael went to the bank. She had in Lumi, next to the main post office, it's not there anymore. She had an account there. And she wrote down, the guy says, name, he says, Spiegelglass. There's a guy like that living in Haifa who must be a relative of yours, because Spiegelglass, that's not Cohen, not Levin. Spiegelglass, there are not so many. So we had a trip for the university to Haifa anyway, and then we went to this factory where he was, to Kaiser Illin, a car factory which was in Haifa, not in Haifa, a little bit out of Haifa. And said, yeah, there was a guy, Spiegelglass, here who was in charge of public relations, but he's working in better Rosh Shemen. So we went to Shemen, and it comes out that he's a cousin of my father, not my dad. And then he told me my dad was here, but he left to Australia, and but he has no connection with him. No connection, no connection. Now comes his father. Yael had an aunt, a sister of her mother lived in Haifa. And every time I was in reserve duty, I used to go there and pay my respects and say her family's okay and so forth. I come there once and she says, there was a woman here who lives 300 yards from here, who heard about you and wants to talk to you. She says she's a cousin of your father's. So I was interested. That's only half of it. I have to tell you the other half. And I went to her, and this I remember. She opened the door and said, "Why?" Because I looked exactly like my dad when he was young. And then she told me that there was all sorts about the family. I never knew how she found out, but I have a suspicion. Yael's aunt, before I met her, this cousin of my dad's, she was in the afternoon tea group. And they were talking about inheritance that had to get to Australia, 1948, April or something like that. April, the English were out, no country, no nothing, there was no post, nothing was here. There was nicht hin and nicht her. And somebody suggested to this gentleman, it was a platinum bracelet with a watch or something. It says to the gentleman that he should go to a travel agency, give this inheritance to this guy who goes to Australia with the hope that it doesn't put it in his pocket. And they did that. And somebody said, did he deliver or did he steal the stuff? And somebody else said, no, he was an honest guy and then he delivered. Yael's aunt, out of the blue, I don't know why, I said, what was his name? Spiegelglas, comes out, it was my dad. Now, how this woman found out about this meeting, I still don't know even today. But it's fate. That is Goral. That's the name of the book. Now you know why.
The Way of Fate. And when you found out that did you know that your father was still alive before this?
Yeah, but I never looked for him. I didn't even interest me.
And did he want to make contact with you?
Well, he thought that I disappeared with my mother in Germany. He never knew what happened to me.
And George, how was the encounter when you saw your father for the first time?
I told you I couldn't speak with him.
But were you emotional? Was there...
I really don't remember. Somewhere I must have been, yes. I have no idea. I don't know.
And was he emotional when he saw you? Was he crying?
Not crying, but look, we got back at 1 o'clock at night to Jerusalem. And I asked my dad when we finally got and I could talk to them whether I should wake the 3 kids. And he said, no. The next morning, early at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we lived sort of down. We had to go down steps to get to our entrance. Tammy comes to our bed. She was in 64. She was 7 years old. Said, listen, I'm afraid there's an old gentleman sitting on the stairs outside. I said, that's your grandfather. Comes out, he couldn't sleep. So he came to our house. We took a room for him in a hotel. But he didn't want to wake up anybody, so he sat on the steps.
And you never felt you wanted to ask him why he never looked for you?
We never spoke about anything that happened before 1964. I was afraid to bring it up and he was afraid to bring it up. But otherwise we had very good relationship.
And he had children?
Yeah, my sister.
Your sister. And were you close with your sister?
She was here for 1 year afterwards, after I met my dad. And then when I went to Australia, we didn't have such, because my dad, he wasn't politically correct maybe. So here my son, he served here in the Navy and he was in Israel and she felt cast out. All the limelight was on me. But after Dad died and her mother died, we have a very good relationship. And even I have to, if it's not nice, I have to admit it, I worked hard to make that relationship really good. And now it's really, 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 really good.
Wow, that's wonderful. Can I just ask you, George, when
I said you can ask what you want. I don't promise to answer.
When you got to America, your uncle, was that Uncle
Alexander.
In America?
Yeah, Alex.
And what was the family name?
Benedict.
Benedict. And
without a T, Benedict.
Benedict. And you were only 13 years old when you got to America?
Yeah.
Were they very kind to you? Were they very...
Oh, yeah. My uncle was strict, but he was kind. I mean, he didn't... Afterwards, when I was in Israel with him, and he was my boss in the factory, but he treated me just like all the others. He never... he once fired me. And the owner of the factory convinced him to take me back. He had a Hungarian temperament, oy vavoy.
And where did you live? Were you in which part of America?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. And going to school, was it difficult to go to school? Or?
No, everybody enjoyed my English accent.
And was it a Jewish school or
no,
a public school?
Public school.
And were they a traditional family or?
Not so much. I don't remember holidays so much.
Do they keep Pesach or?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I actually don't remember.
And when you went to school, did any of the kids ask about being Jewish or
No.
being in the Kindertransport or?
No. First of all, they didn't know. They thought I'm from England and that's it.
Did you ever tell anybody?
No, I never spoke about it.
And did any of your family in America ask you questions about the Kindertransport or Germany?
Not that I remember.
Really? And when you heard what had happened in the Shoah or what had happened to the Jews of Germany, you're already in America.
Yeah.
How was your reaction when you...
Look, I was very good. Now you're taking another subject. Very, very anti. And I went to Sweden and I was there for 3 months and I came back and I went to Berlin because my uncle from here went back to Germany because of his wife. She was an opera singer and she got a job there in Munich. And so he went to Germany too, even though he didn't want to. His son was in the American army, and then in Germany he married a German Christian woman who had already 3 kids. So he wasn't exactly happy about that. And when I got to Germany in 1964, the first time, I couldn't speak German there. Absolutely a block. People addressed me in German. I knew exactly what they said, but I always answered in English. I had this feeling, I'm not associated with those people. I'm not one of them. And that changed afterwards. Also for a reason that I was working here, I had my own workshop, and then I taught also at the engineering college in the evening. And I was connected with vocational education all the time. That's part of my DNA. And then I was asked to put up a workshop for grown-ups to remake their profession. And I must have done it quite successfully. And when a German group came from Germany to Israel, I spoke with them German. I had no problem to speaking to the same people in Germany here, which I couldn't speak with them in Germany. And they said, and the guy said, "Why, you speak German very well, and you know all the names of the machineries and tools, everything in German. You're going with the next delegation to Germany." I said, "Do me a favor, in Germany, I can't speak German. I don't want to go and get off my back." 2 weeks later, I had a passport. And then it started to open up.
But when you were in America, New Jersey,
yes,
did you feel you were becoming American, or did you?
Oh yeah.
Here you have at a camp counselors, you're in the lower row on the left, and you seem to be very happy.
I had a bloody good time there. We also did miss a lot of listen, I wasn't such a nice guy. We did a lot of mistakes. In the day we were counselors, and at night we would paint the kids with mercurochrome or something and give them a rash. Or if a kid slept like this, we would put his fingers in lukewarm water, would pee in the bed.
You had from the American Red Cross swimming qualification.
Yeah.
And the family were good to you? Did they make you feel part of the...
Oh, yeah.
And when did you decide that you want to come to Israel?
I didn't want to come to Israel at all.
So how did you end up coming?
Look, when my uncle divorced his wife, and for 2 years it was horrible at home. And I lived with a friend of mine for 6 months.
How old were you at this time?
Oh, I was 16 or so, or something like that. And when he said, I'm going to Israel, I said, I don't want to go. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, I'll join the Navy. And this I could, because at 17 you can join the American Navy, but only with a signature of the parents. If I would have been 18, I wouldn't need anybody. At 18 I could have joined just like that, but I was 17. I said I would join the American Navy. He said, but I don't sign. So I said, okay, I'll take an agreement with you. I'll go with you to Israel, and if I don't like it, you pay me a one-way ticket back to America, and I'm on quite a big mouth for a 17-and-a-half-year-old who has nobody in America, by the way. And I came, and I nearly went back, to be honest. And then somehow I got connected to a group in Shuni, Israelis, ex-Lehi and Etzelnickers, who were Sabris, most of them. But you know, in the high branch, there were some of them were in Eritrea for 2 years in prison, and the women were in Bethlehem in the prison for women. And I went with them and opened up a new kibbutz from scratch. And
so I just want to show, George, you came from America, and here there's a yearbook where you're in the middle over here.
No, my yearbook I have upstairs.
You have from the West Orange High School yearbook, and you look as if you had a very nice life, a very
exciting life.
Very exciting, and
yes, maybe too exciting.
And you had friends. So coming to Israel, you were coming to a war. You were coming
I said I was in a war for 6 years. I don't want to go to another war. But I stayed in the end.
So what year did you come here?
1949.
So the war, was it already the armistice? Or?
Armistice had already started.
And when you heard about the establishment of the State of Israel?
We went to Madison Square Garden for the big ceremony. And I know that we were the last people in, because I was with my uncle and my best friend, and we went in through a side door. My uncle got in, I got in, and then they closed the door, and my friends were stuck outside for the whole service. Now Madison Square Garden has 18,000 people that can go in. There were 22,000 people in there. And of course, Eleanor Roosevelt spoke, and Morgan Saul spoke, and all the big characters and so forth. It was very exciting.
And when did you find out that your mother had perished in the Shoah, in Auschwitz?
I really don't know. I never spoke about it. It's difficult to say. I know that I didn't want to have anything to do with the Germans. I didn't want to talk or I didn't want to take reparations from the Germans, until a friend said to me, "You're a stupid idiot. If somebody gives you money, take it and don't ask questions." I said, I can't take. And then finally that he should get off my back after 3 years. Okay, where do you want me to go? So I did, what I got was something which I feel is a little bit sad. I got two things from the Germans. I finished my studies and had a diploma, and so they in retroactive paid for all the expenses I had for the time I studied and paid the tuition. That's one thing, and they paid 6,000 German marks that they murdered my mother in Auschwitz. That's what that was a life was worth, as an inheritance sort of, I don't know, and that's it. And I didn't ask for any more, and I don't want any more. But today I must say I have very good relations with the German, and I'll tell you why. I also was like most Holocaust survivors. I didn't want anything German, speak nothing. And then I was invited, when I went on the first delegation, I was there, and there was a woman there who was our baby's, a German woman. She was the husband of a evangelist preacher from Saarbrücken. And she was a guide, and she was, we got very friendly, and we had a good time together and so forth, and that connection stayed. And then in 2014, I had spoken already before at home here, I think, I'm not sure, got a telephone call, and she said, we put your name down as the guest speaker at the International Holocaust Day in January. They were there, the parliament, with 500 invited guests. I said, excuse me, maybe you should have asked me first. And she said, we thought about it, but we were afraid you'd say no. I had to buy a suit, but I don't go in suits. And 6 months, every night in my dream, I gave a speech, which helped, by the way, it really helped. And then I spoke there in a couple of schools, and it started to roll, and then I got an organization caught me there, and then I continued. I spoke to about 10,000 kids already. But, and what happened was that at one stage, I started to think a little bit logically, not with the mind, not with the heart. I said, how can I tell a 18, 17, 16-year-old kid what a bastard it was, and they're murderers, and he knows it, and how can that kid be to blame for what the grandparents did? It's not fair, it's not right, and also it has the opposite effect. And my first lecture was in Halle after this decision. And I think there was a woman there from the German parliament. I think she was one of the instigators. And I came there, and there were 3 classes in the Cantor Gymnasium, which is a famous gymnasium with a boarding school. And they said, you probably want to hear my life history. And I'll tell it to you, but that's not why I came. My life history, I'll give you my book, you can read it, and you'll know exactly, I don't have to be here for that. I came here for another purpose. You should know, from my point of view, you're not to blame for what happened 80 years ago. Your parents didn't even live. But, from my point of view, you're responsible that it'll never happen again. And therefore I'm here to tell you what happened, that you shouldn't say that's history, let's forget about it. You're not allowed to forget about it. You have to remember, even if it's hard, and fight against racism. And that's why I'm here. Forgot about it. 6 weeks after I came back, I got a copy of a letter from a kid, 16 years old, who wrote to the, said, look, I don't earn money on it, and I don't want to earn money on it, but I don't think I have to pay for my flight and my hotel. And he wrote to the institute that paid for that, and said, wrote a letter and said, last week we heard a talk by Mr. Shefi, and the teacher asked us to come there, so we would hear a talk of a Holocaust survivor, and we heard already 12 times of Auschwitz and Birkenau, and sick and tired of it. We should forget about it and start something new. But we're students, teacher says go, we go. And lo and behold, we heard something else. And after Mr. Shefi left, we made a meeting and discussed 70-some kids, 3 classes. We discussed this and came to the conclusion that he's right. From today, we're going to fight anti-Semitism, racism. I did my job.
It's the most amazing message.
And since then, also a lot of Holocaust survivors are now talking the same. At the beginning, how can you let them off? I said, look, if I make them rub their noses in the dirt, it will only make more anti-Semitism. And I honestly believe those kids are not to blame. And now the same Holocaust survivors who yelled at me for my approach are talking the same way, by the way. I know personally a couple of them.
And it's amazing that Germany today, the president and the previous president and the chancellor, they're so pro-Israel.
Okay. This letter is from the 30th of July 1941, written by my aunt to her brother in America. At least after 4 months, a sign of life from you. I'd just like to know what you think, to leave me without a message for such a long time. Don't I have trouble enough? I received the documents from Mitzi and me, but unfortunately it is all too late. Some months earlier we would have been lucky. I've been to the consulate with the affidavit, but from Berlin nothing can be done for the immigration to the US. Instead, you have to hand the applications to the State Department in Washington by yourself. The application has to be handed in by guarantors who are either American citizens or have legally immigrated to the United States. Each guarantor has to add the application, a form with the personal circumstances of the future immigrant, including the following information. A. Margaret Benedict, born the 24th of the 12th, 1897 in Vienna, resident in Berlin-Schöneberg, Hauptstraße 5. B. Hungarian citizen, single, and then you have to specify the address of all your siblings who are living abroad, also the address of Mitzi and her child, education, Volksschule until 1939, sales clerk and housekeeper, and at present factory worker. It has to arise from the application form and guarantor's declaration that it won't become a burden for the public. Marie Spiegelglas, born, that's my mother, born Benedict, stateless, born on the 20th of the 2nd, 1908, Vienna, divorced. Everything else above. The best would be, my dear Shanda, that you go to the local committee of the Highest and let them explain everything to you, how you have to do it. It is a pity that you and Hater, that's his wife, efforts were in vain, but one has to try everything, and I beg you dearly, don't deal with this issue lapidary. I am prepared to depart without a penny, since I cannot pay the fare at once, and also Judith has to raise all her money in order to help us. Judith is the sister in Australia. You can be sure that I don't ask it for nothing. I believe that I can find a job with my versatility, and so that I can pay you back, that's for sure. You don't have to tell me how much you have to sacrifice for us, but at this moment only the biggest sacrifice of our siblings can help. I hope you will understand me. Judith's relatives, including Robert, have no obligations toward us, even not out of humanness, since I don't know them and they are strangers for us. That's the brother and his wife and so forth. About our beloved child, that's me. We are happy that everyone is fine. You and Aunt Heda take care of George and stay in touch with him and hear how the child is doing. If just everything would be all right again, that's my biggest desire, day and night. Apart from that, there is nothing new. Did Herbert Feldman get in touch with you? He is an acquaintance of ours who also went to New York, and I gave him your address. Well, my dear Shando, that's the brother, I beg you please try everything so that we can also come to you. Later I want to continue from there. Your son, how's your son? A picture would be nice in order to see how big your boy already is. Surely Heta has a lot of work with such a big apartment. How is Paula? Where is Irma? I don't receive any mail from Robert. That's why you have Robert, who was the brother, was in Shanghai. That is why you have to write to us more often, even only a few lines. Best wishes to all. Soon it will be a year that their father is dead. How the time passes by. I am very lonely and tired and spend my free time as soon as I come home in bed sleeping, just forgetting everything. Please write, dear Hete, and take care that Shanda thinks more often of us. All the best to you, my dear. If I could only see all of you again, that would be the happiest hour. God make it possible. Kisses from your sister Greta.
And this never happened.
No.
And Greta and your mom
died in Auschwitz.
And you have the, I think, a copy of the original.
Yes. That was there.
This was the and the original is now in Lochamei HaGetot.
Yes.
That will be preserved.
Yes. That was the last letter.
The last letter. You see, George, how much they cared, and they spoke about you, and
I was a very spoiled brat.
no, you were very precious. George, thank you so much. So, George, today in Germany, you have many friends. You have
Yes. So I told you in Halle, I think she was the instigator. When I was there about 4 years ago to talk in different schools, I said I have to go to the Parliament of Brandenburg, and the Prime Minister, President wants to talk to me or something like that. So I had to go with a suit, of course. And there I got, and what happened was, there was a big ceremony, and I got this.
This is very special. And they made a whole ceremony.
Oh, not finished yet. They made a whole ceremony, and whoops. This is the speech that the president gave. He's a hell of a marvelous character, I am telling you. And here, just a second, I have to. This is a translation from the German. Bevritata in Rabaya.
You don't have it in English?
No, I don't think so. No.
Or even in German?
In German I have the original.
Oh, could you read it in German?
Oh, that will be a bit difficult. I can read it in Hebrew, but easy, I think. Anyway, that's the
and this is the original.
This is the original. And I have the whole thing on video. The whole. When he spoke, I was a little bit wet. But you understand German.
From Yiddish, yeah.
I'll try and read it to you. Tell me what's that? Liebe Frau Dr. Manja Schüler, that's, I think she's the liebe Frau Susanna Kraus-Heinrichs, she's has the money. Sehr geehrter Jegene Kutikow, jüdische Gemeinde Potsdam und sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. I think if I put on my glasses it will come out better. Ich begrüße Sie in der Staatskanzlerei des Landes Brandenburg. Ganz besonders herzliche Grüße ich natürlich der Person, um die es heute geht. Sehr geehrter Herr George Shefi, gesprochen Shefi, also ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie es ermöglichen konnten, heute hier zu kommen. Es ist eine außerordentliche Ehre, Sie persönlich zu kennen, zu lernen und Sie für Ihren großen Verdienst als ein ermöglicher Zeitzeiger zu würdigen. Next, page 2. Sie werden heute begleitet von Ihrer Frau Jael, Ihrer Tochter Tamar, gesprochen Tamar, und Ihren Enkel Gil. Auch an Sie ein ganz herzliches Willkommen. Lieber Herr Shefi, es ist kein Zufall, dass Ihre Familie heute an Ihrer Seite ist. Vor 6 Jahren waren Ihre Angehörigen dabei, als Sie zum ersten Mal als Zeitzeuge nach Brandenburg kamen. Seit vielen Jahren werden Sie von Ihrer Familie dabei unterstützt, vor allem jüdischen Menschen in Israel, aber auch eben in Deutschland, Sicht auf die Shoah zu schildern. Genau dieser Rückhalt und Zusammenhalt macht Familie für viele Menschen zum Wichtigsten in ihrem Leben. In einer Familie entsteht ein starkes Band. Und als Vater 2 Töchter kann ich Ihnen sagen, alleine der Gedenken an meine Kinder, meine engsten Angehörige vielleicht nie wieder zu sehen, ist so unerträglich, dass ich es mir gar nicht vorstellen kann. Und doch ist diese unerträgliche, unverstörbare Geschehen. Mit Willkür und Gewalt wurden vor mehr als 80 Jahren Menschen aus ihren Familien, aus ihrer Heimat und aus dem Leben gerissen. Das Leid, das Deutsche und ihre Hilfshelfer in der Zeit des Nationalsozialismus über Millionen von Menschen gebracht hat, ist für uns Nachgeborene heute schwer zu begreifen. Es wird uns in seiner Anmerklichkeit in die Grenzen unserer Vorstellungskraft. Ich halte es als für unerlässlich, dass wir immer wieder mit offenen Augen auf diese Zeiten blicken. Dass wir diese Verbrechen des Shoah und des Faschismus nicht als etwas Fernes aus einer fremden Welt verstehen, sondern es uns bewusst machen, dass es Menschen waren wie du und ich, die andere Menschen Schlimmsten angetan haben und dass wir uns darüber im Klaren sind, dass diese Gefahr auch heute nicht gänzlich gebannt ist. Dieses schwierige Schritt aus dem reinen historischen Wissen, einen Bezug, der unser persönliches Leben herzustellt durch die Erinnerung von den Zeitzeuginnen und Zeitzeugen leichter. Ich habe als Ministerpräsident des Landes Brandenburg mehrfach die Gelegenheit gehabt, mich dafür bei Wundern Menschen zu bedanken. Opa. Ich halte es für ein Beispiel persönlich Gäste, dass diejenigen, die so viel Brutalität, Hass und Barbarei enttragen mussten, den Mut und die Kraft gefunden haben, uns davon zu berichten. Immer stellen sie dich zeitgleichen schrecklichen Erinnerungen und Erfahrungen öffentlich, einfach auf, um dafür zu sorgen, dass die Menschlichkeit nie wieder Opfer eines solchen Verbrechens wird. Lieber Herr Shefi, auch Sie sind diesen bewunderndsten Schritt gegangen. Sie haben Ihr eigenes Schicksal öffentlich gemacht und unsere heutige Gesellschaft damit in vielerlei Hinsicht geholfen. Aus Brandenburg Sicht macht Ihre Erinnerung zuallererst eines ganz deutlich. Es begann nicht irgendwo, sondern hier direkt von unserer Haustür. Und es begann auch nicht irgendwo, irgendwann, sondern in jener Zeit, als Hass, Rassismus und ausgründige Politik und Gesellschaft so lahmfegen würden. Sie verehrten Herr Schäfer habe es damals als kleiner Junge in Berlin erlebt. Sie müssten mit uns ansehen, wie sich Hass und Gewalt in der Reichspogromnacht entluden und wenig später im Alter von 7 Jahren geschickt für sie ganz persönlich das unvorstellbar. So würden damals nicht aus ihrer Familie gerissen, sondern sie würden von ihrer aus für Sorge fortgeschickt. Mit dem sogenannten Kindertransport kamen sie nach England. Mehr als 10.000 vornehmliche jüdische Kinder und Jugendliche konnten auf diese Weise in Sicherheit gebracht werden. Der Mut und die Solidarität vieler Menschen in die größte Liebe ihrer Mutter haben ihnen das Leben gerettet. Sie haben ein Erlebnis aus dieser Zeit und ihren weiteren Lebensweg später für uns aufgeschrieben in dem Buch The Way of Fate. Beschrieben sie auch den Tag, um den sie ihre Mutter zum letzten Mal sehen. So würde wenig später in Auschwitz ermordet. Ihre Biografie gibt einen intimen Einblick in das Schicksal ihrer gesamten Familie. Es wird sichtbar, wohin das und gefällt würden. Und man kann erfahren, wie weit und wie lange diese Gift nachgewirkt hat. Sie haben ihre Erinnerungen in jeder Zeit aufgeschrieben, damit heute alle verstehen, dass wir gemeinsam eine Verantwortung tragen, dass sowas nie wieder möglich wird. Kotevle schreibt, he writes to the point. No?
It's amazing.
Sehr, denke mal, und ihr unerschütterlicher Optimismus, ihr Humor und ihre Menschlichkeit, mit dem sie auf ihr Leben hat, das ihre Familie blicken, da hat bereits vielen Menschen die Augen geöffnet und zu fest berührt. Die Vergangenheit ist vorbei, nach kann sie nicht mehr ändern. Ich schaue auch auf das, was ich beeinflussen kann. So haben sie es ausgedrückt. Diese Haltung trägt so viel Versöhnlichkeit und Zuversicht in sich, dass ich mich nur davor beneigen und auch dafür bedanken kann. Es ist für uns ein großes Glück, dass Sie sich vor einiger Zeit darauf eingelassen haben, Ihre Erinnerung auch nach Deutschland und nach Brandenburg zu bringen. Die Ambra Stiftung, die Flick Stiftung und die Beginn Schloss Gollwitz, ihre Familie und natürlich sie selbst haben es gemeinsam geschafft, dass seitdem vielen Menschen in unserem Land um eine wichtige Perspektive auf dieses Shoah reicher sind. Den Blick eines Kindes, das gerettet wurde und dabei so viel verloren. Besonders Kinder und Jugendliche können dank Ihnen leichter verstehen, was damals geschehen ist. Sehr geehrter Herr Chef, ich bin froh, dass wir Sie und Ihre Familie im Kampf gegen Fremdenfeindlichkeit und Menschenverringerung an unserer Seite haben. Ihre Erinnerungen, Ihre Erfahrungen geben uns die Kraft, dem wiedererstarkenden Rechtspopulismus und Antisemitismus die Stirn zu bieten. Und ich verspreche Ihnen, dass wir damit nie nachlassen würden. In Namen aller Brandenburgerinnen und Brandenburger bedanke ich bei Ihnen für alles, was Sie gegeben haben. Die Verleihung des Verdienstorders unseres Landes soll höchstes Anerkennung und Zeichen unserer Verschätzung und Freundschaft sehen. Ich bitte Sie, Ihnen zur Ordnungsverleitung zu mir nachzufordern. Das heißt, to go to him and get the medal. Weil die Leute ihm sagen.
And that's when they gave you the medal?
Yeah. Well, I have it on film. I have the whole process.
George, can you just give a little bit in English what he said? Just a bit of a bit of a translation, a little bit.
He said that he is grateful that I came, and that I managed to open up the eyes of the people in Germany that I met of what happened and what you have to be careful from. And he promises that he will do his utmost that such a thing will never happen again.
And I think that is such the most amazing message.
And not only that, when I became on my 90th birthday, I got a letter from Germany. I said, who the hell writes to me from Germany? And it came from the government. And he wrote a letter. Now he could have said to his secretary, okay, send Mr. Shefi a happy birthday. And he wrote me a letter, and I have it here this long. Why I earned this medal. And now, this year still, when I was in Germany, not the Kindertransport, I was in January in Germany. He heard that I was coming, and he pushed everything aside and said he wants to meet. And we had an hour and a half long conversation with about 20 other people there listening in, talking about that we sold the Arrow missile. Brandenburg, is the Brandenburg is where the Arrow missile is going to be produced in Germany. It's him.
He's the one. Because it's amazing to think that Israel has sold the weapons to save Germany. Who would have thought 80 years ago that one day the Jewish people would be selling and helping Germany to defend themselves?
No, we're helping Germany, but we're also helping ourselves. Let's be honest. Why?
But it's
and I'll tell you why. First of all, if selling it to Germany is you want it.
I just want to show the cover.
It's good business, quote unquote. And this war did one thing which I very much like, is that it proved that Arrow missile is very successful because we've used it. And thirdly, if we're in trouble, and let's say the Hezbollah bombs, the factory will be in Germany. We will get the Arrow missiles from Germany, and they can't do a damn thing to damage the factory if it's built there. And not only that, apparently this Arrow missile, which will be built in Germany, is going to NATO because Germany is a member of NATO. So it will be in Holland, in Denmark.
So Jewish innovation and Jewish...
Look, this little country, I looked it up the other day again. In 75 years, had 13 Nobel Prizes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. From the whole list, we have the standing of about the number 13 in the standing. Not only that, in America they have 400 and some Nobel Prizes.
Many are Jewish.
And about 100 and some are Jewish. So you know, some people have a good reason to hate.
But, you know, I just want to mention something. George, here you have in your book such a beautiful picture with you and your father. And, you know, you could have been had a lot of animosity, a lot of hard feelings that your father left.
Yeah, that's true.
But look,
you know, look, I look at it very, very straight in the face. And okay, I would say I don't want to see you. That has a purpose?
So if only more people would think the way you think, really, because it's so...
That's idiotic. I mean, let's be honest. It takes two to make an argument. I don't know what happened. Maybe he was at fault, maybe my mom was... Well, what's the difference? It's already past.
So here's a picture of your father with his wife, and the similarity, you nearing the same age as your father, and here's your father, Alexander.
No, my father died at 74. I passed his age already long ago.
But the picture here, where there's a marked, the characters, there's a big resemblance between you and your father. And when you saw your father, did he ask a little bit about your mother, or...
I said we
didn't even discuss that.
We never discussed anything that happened before 1964.
Do you have regrets that you didn't?
No. I think that's the way, the way of life. And I think my uncle, my mother's brother, he never knew that I spoke with my dad. He told me once before, when he found out that they were in Australia, when my aunt saw my dad, or I don't know what, he once told me, if you ever get in contact with your dad, for me you don't exist anymore. And I left it at that. And he never knew, and I have a guilty conscience that I lied, but his wife convinced me, said, if you would have told him that you would, he would have broken his heart.
You did the right thing.
I don't usually lie if I can help it.
And George, have you been to Auschwitz?
Yes.
Was it very difficult to go?
It depends where.
Knowing that your mother, that's where...
Look, I went to Auschwitz. I saw all those glasses and that didn't bother me. I had no feeling whatsoever. In Auschwitz, we met a person who studied at the same time at the university as Yael. And I think they had some studies together, I'm not so sure. He was Polish and he was looking for his roots. And we met by chance in Poland. And I asked him, I said, do you speak Polish? Ask if there's archives here. And there was. And we went to the archives, and I asked if there's any papers or something for my mom and my sister. I said, what's the name? And she came back with 2 cards, and there I completely collapsed. That's what's left of 2 people. This is the owner of the Chanukiah before I got it. He was the after the war the cantor of the
And George, could you relate the story with when you put up the stones, and then the lady came with the Chanukah.
No, but I was busy, so she did it. She came, and she lived about 2 houses or 3 houses from us.
But was it your idea to put the staple stones?
I knew about it. I never thought I'd do it. And when this host, who I met on a cruise, by the way, but just by accident, fate, it's written. And he organized it.
And the lady came and she presented you with a menorah.
Yeah, and the letter and the picture and I think this is it. That's the calendar of what happened to all. But I can't read her handwriting.
And that menorah, you've donated. She gave it to you, but you've given it to Lochavei HaKetoret.
Yeah, no, I've got a Chanukah. How many do I need? And I think that's the right place for it to be. No?
And it's so beautiful that you have these pictures. This is with your father. And Tammy. And it's so nice that you've kept connections with your sister.
No, that's obvious. That's the only family I have. Listen, when I got married, more than half the people at the Minyan I didn't even know. I only saw for the first time, because we did it at the Rabbanut, and I had my uncle and my best friend, and all the other people they took off the street to make the Minyan.
And George, coming to Israel, when did you decide that you don't want to go back to America, that you want to stay here?
I think when I was on the kibbutz for some time and saw the atmosphere, that's why I say the atmosphere today is horrible. Everybody wants to have money and take whatever he can. Nobody really gives a damn otherwise.
And when you came, you felt there was
a Zionism in at face value, not anymore.
Well, please God, I think now things have changed. People
Yes.
are... Here you have a picture as a young pioneer
Where?
on Mishmar HaYarden.
That's what we took from Tiras, the hairs, and made pious. That isn't a picture I'm so proud of.
And when your kids were growing up, did
Yeah.
you tell them a lot about being a survivor
No.
in the Kindertransport?
No. Not because I didn't want to, but just didn't. Look, I married a woman who's born here. I was always connected with people who were born here. See, that's the big problem, because all the Poles always married amongst the Poles and the Romanians, and that's not right. Today it's already different. And this with the Moroccans and the Ashkenazis. When I got off the ship in Haifa, they asked me if I'm an Ashkenazi or Sfaradi. I said, I don't know what, but they're not all Jews. I've never heard of that before.
That's the way it should be.
And that's the way it should be. And now all those people in the government who are saying, all the Sfaradim, the intermarriage is already 70-80%.
Yeah.
Eisenkot, yeah? That's an Arabic name or Oriental name.
He just lost his son.
Yes, but he's Moroccan. His mother is Moroccan. His father is Ashkenazi. So that's all with this, what they're talking about. And all the people in status of professors, and they're, well, excuse the expression, this whole business of Sfaradim, Ashkenazim is all bullshit, because it doesn't exist anymore.
That's true. And George, when did you start speaking to schools, and when did you start
About
relating?
20 years ago, I think.
But before that...
No, I was anti.
And your children, when did they ask, or when did they find out?
It happened when I went to Australia. I wanted to visit my aunt. And I told Tommy to, because my aunt was absolutely furious And she didn't know I was in Australia at that time. And they went up to see if she's home, but he wasn't home, and Tommy came back down from the house, and so we sat in the car, and she told me, "Why did you ask me to go up? You always used to go first. Why?" I said, "Tommy, now I'll tell him." We sat in the car in front of my aunt's house, and I told her my life story, and she was 18. And rightly so, because when we went to Australia, I was with her the first time, after high school and before she went into the army. And then when I was in Hong Kong, I said, "Here, $100. You're on your own. Whatever you want to do, do. If you want to go with me, go with me. If you want to go alone, do what you want." He says, "Dad, I want to ask you a question. Until today, you told me you have to do this and you this. And now I'm free. What happened?" I said, "Look, it's very simple. When you were in high school, you were a child. You finished school, you're going into the army, you're a woman. And you're responsible for yourself. I can help you, you can ask my advice, you don't have to take it. You can do whatever you want. But remember one, and I'll help you if you have problems if I can, but remember, it's your responsibility, your life, not anymore mine."
Wow.
Correct?
Correct. And when you told her the story, it must have been, she had no idea?
No. And I think that knitted our family kacha.
George, it's just unbelievable. It's something...
Well, it is, because I'm sitting here.
So I just want to thank you.
And you don't have some tea or something with
Listen, I just want to really thank you. And George, I want to thank you also for, not only is this is your life story, and that you designed it with the train with a question mark.
Yeah.
It is absolutely, there are no words. There really are no words. George, your story and what you went through.
I did a lot. I made that woman. That's my work. Wow. I made that one with the metal, as a flame, you know, 6 million. There's six. What else did I do? I made these two drawings. I made that wooden statue.
It's beautiful. Wow.
And I made all these photographs.
Well, George, I'm so grateful to you, and you should just have Mazel Bracha and in good health. We say at Mayvestrim to 120 plus man.
Plus man.
But George, you should just be well and gesund, and I am so eternally grateful to you. This has been, it's been phenomenal. It's just been, you are an example. No, really, George, you are an example that everybody, Jew, non-Jew, everybody can emulate.
Yes, I believe so 100%.
Your message is so, what you gave that message, that people should learn, that they should never do again, that they should learn from history. Alavai, today we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing a second Holocaust happening. But I want to thank you so much, and whoever sees this, wow, they won't be the same again.
I think that this medal, I think I earned it.
Can we show the medal again, George? It is so amazing. Wow. That is so special. Sure. I'm just going to go closer. Wow. Well, you really, really deserved it. And again, I just want to thank you so much. Wow, this has been this honor, and look, I just want to even bring it closer. It is, wow, this is so special. And
but I don't wear it when I go out in Germany. I have this pin that I go there, that they should know I did get a medal.
That's wonderful. Well, this has been such a pleasure, and you should only have nachas and good health, and
thank you.
Please God, we should have peace in our time and better days.
It will come one of these days, I hope.
And this is what you made. You actually, this is in memory of the
6 million.
It's amazing, sure.
I also made.
You're very gifted.
I also made these pamotim.
Wow.
Come here. All these photographs. I mean, I made so many photos.
These are your photos.
Yeah, no, this is bought. But all the photos, that's a famous painting that my mother-in-law did, the one on top there. That's a painting that Yael made from a photograph, which is here on the wall.
It's wonderful.
And I have over 1,000 spoons from places I've been to, collected on the walls all the way up to the 3rd floor.
That's amazing. What a beautiful home.
Yeah.
And George, you have this, it's from the Israeli television?
I made those things, 300 of them for the pensioners. From the it's a Chanukiah.
It's a Chanukiah.
Yeah.
And you made this?
I didn't design it. I produced it.
It's beautiful. Well, George,
Here.
This is the picture.
She's a member of the Federal Parliament, and this is the woman who has the kitty.
This is such a well-deserved honor. Well, George, thank you so much.
Pleasure was all mine.